generation has good face, they can be shown by the system. Older generation are not allowed.
Okay.
Maybe.
So we'll thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. We are really excited to get started on season 2 of Karo Sambhav's webinar series. So last year, we did about 8 episodes in season 1, and it was called Demystifying EPR. And we got a phenomenal response across all the episodes. We had collectively over 1,000 attendees throughout the 8 episodes, and we had such a nice discussion with over 50 speakers who came from different parts of the industry, not only the waste sector, but also from industry coalitions, national, international, all of them sharing such crucial insights that were so helpful. And just in case some of the attendees here weren't able to go through all of the episodes that we had last year, good news, we have collectively collated 800 minutes of conversation into a precise, concise, documented report, which is easy to read and easy to digest. And that would be launched next week. So stay tuned to our social media channels. You would get an update on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whichever channel you follow us, you'll be able to access the report. So stay tuned, and we will also send it to you on email. So thank you so much for even joining us in season 2. So the topic that the overall umbrella topic that we want to cover this year is closing material loops from waste to renewed resources. I mean, I think the rate at which today virgin products are entering the market, as well as the different kind of waste streams that are entering the market, it is worrisome. While we may not be able to directly see all the waste streams right in front of our eyes, the rate at which it is happening, it's crucial for us to take action right now. Time is now where we need to make that decision. Time is now where we need to make that change to enable a circular economy. And I think Karo Sambhav truly believes to ignite that collective consciousness. And we want to not just end these conversations in this 1 hour episode. We want to keep the issue alive. And that's why we are going to have continued series of conversations coming up. So on that note, I would like to just let you know how the flow of the conversation in today's episode is going to be. We would open with a keynote address by Dr. Sandip Chatterjee, which would be followed, because he is constrained on time. We would ask all of you to pose your questions in the chat for Dr. Sandip. And as soon as he's done with his address, you will be able to ask the questions to him. And we will pick 1 or 2 questions based on the priority of the questions for him. And then that would be followed by a panel discussion, which would be moderated by my colleague, Sushant. And there will be another Q&A right after the panel discussion. So stay tuned. Hope you stay till the end, because we have an awesome panelist and awesome panel of speakers out here. On that note, I would hand it over to you, Pranshu, to introduce Dr. Sandip. Over to you.
Thank you, Sreepriya. And a real warm welcome to everyone. I think the series 1 really opened a lot of boxes in terms of knowledge. And the whole aim of this series, specifically in this year, would be to look at not just Indian practices, but also international practices. We have speakers this time lined up from World Economic out there. And this is the 8-episode series that we will be running during the course of the year. And we will be inviting a whole range of speakers, because this dialogue does not just pertain to India. I think especially with the Ukraine war, every country is now on a path of finding Atmanirbharta in Indian terms and self-reliance. And materials are becoming increasingly constrained. So each and every organization, each and every country, and in a electronic space, you know, while one can say, okay, we can be disassociated, but in reality, the supply chains are global. So anything that we do in India will have global ramifications. So that's the purpose of this dialogue. And essentially, the material circularity is gaining a very, very important foothold. So that's the objective of the series. With this, you know, I don't think Sandip Chatterjee sir needs any introduction. He has been the, let's say, the father figure in terms of driving this whole movement, and had led it, you know, for last 2 decades. So, sir, over to you. And a deep thank you to you for participating. We will be working with you closely throughout the series, especially because there are new regulations, regulatory changes, new changes which will happen, especially in this year. So anything, even from a government point of view, you would like us to debate, we would be very happy to open the series, find speakers across the world to do that. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Pransu. This is my pleasure. And I should congratulate Karo Sambhav for commendable job in this journey. And actually, many things we learned from Pransu from your Nokia days and try to implement in the ministry. Circular economy, as we see, this is the new mantra of development. Everybody knows that. And without that, as you rightly mentioned, it is very difficult for any economy to grow. And the waste concept we learned in the Industrial Revolution. In last 7 or 8 decades, we have generated this waste. We actually learn how to make products up from the natures, then develop the product, then use it, then throw it. We never bother about what will happen. We never bother about the design of the product, how after end of life we can reuse them or recycle them in better way. We never bother about the material which is required for functional reason, may damage the Mother Earth. So we never bother. So one study is saying whatever the materials were used, 20% of the materials will run out in another 50 years. And another 35% will run out another 100 years. So where from our economy will grow if you are not taking care of the end of life? So vis-a-vis, if you see the fourth industrial revolution, which is based on our ministry's main priority, that is digital technology. So digitization teaches us how fourth revolution will work. How instead of steam engine, we will be talking about digitization through data flow. How Industry 4.0 or disruptive technology can minimize some of the use of some products. So this is another issue continuously evolving in front of us. New engineers, new scientists are developing them, and so that we should have a different ecosystem working. So in that scenario, if you see with the present economical development, India would require 30 billion tons of material by 2030. Very interesting figure, 30 billion tons of material. Of course, we are not taking, we are changing our gradient of growth more steeper with the leadership of Prime Minister. So we are in a very different situation. I think we should not now discuss about this issue. We should start our action. And considering this, Niti Aayog rightly in the mid of second wave of COVID has come up with a very difficult proposition. They have identified the 11 verticals where the action plan has to be developed. And I can understand how Pransu, Rachna help us, the ministry, that point of time to come out one of the best action plan we have prepared and submitted to Niti Aayog. Of course, there are a lot of backlashes from the industry. We have little bit modified that action plan, but there are some moderate recommendation we have submitted to Niti Aayog to work. So there, if you remember, Pransu, or this was there in our website also, lot of things we talk about: green product, green skill council, informal upgradation, skill development, sensitization through awareness, constant awareness program, standardization in each and every stage, right to repair. So those things we have enhanced, and it will be part of our action plan. And you must have seen that the MOEF has started come out with a different version of the rules. That was the outcome of our action plan. So from our ministry, there are lots of recommendation. May not happen in a first year or two, but we have taken a very important, I should say, step. One very important step immediately you have taken, that is the spec scheme. In the spec scheme, we have a 25% subsidy we are offering for state-of-art recycling. Because if you see, you are talking about circular economy, but the infrastructure is not in their country. So we are actually in the hand of informal sectors. So in our ministry, first thing we have come out with a 25% of spec scheme, and where international player can apply, or rather Indian entrepreneurs also can apply to have a end-to-end recycling plant, so that the precious metal extraction can be strengthened. From 2007 onward, we are working on cost-effective technology. And this cost-effective technology in various monetizable component of e-waste, like printed circuit board, lithium-ion battery, engineering plastics, spent magnet, solar panel, phosphorus where rare earth can be extracted. So those who have developed in various laboratories in the country, from National Metallurgical Laboratory, CPET, Bhubaneswar, our own labs, CMED, Hyderabad. So, and after that, in 2019, we have created a center of excellence of e-waste management, and with a proposition participatory fund model 40-40-20, where 40% fund METI has given, 40% Telangana government has given, and 20% fund Greenco, one of the company on solar renewable energy and solar energy, they have funded. So that their contribution is nearly 9 crores. The first time in India, the industries are accepting, or rather recognizing the Indian research. So the the target of that center of excellence is created the 50 startup company out of that. And one of the important accomplishment through that center of excellence, first time globally, we have created a MTech program on e-waste management and engineering in IIT Hyderabad, which has been running by CMED Hyderabad and IIT Hyderabad jointly for last almost 5 years, and where the graduates are joining in CMED for the startup program. So this is very interesting thing. Another very important thing, if you see, I plans to discuss for many years, there are almost 20 lakhs informal operators in our country. They are the best collectors. They are already know the value chain, the material linkages. So the skill development of those operators is most important thing. So we have created skill development program, started with Northeast first. So 8 Northeast state we have started this skill development program, where the refurbishment of the product till the dismantling and segregation of the value materials we have taken care. And then we have another program in Punjab University to cater the informal operators in Chandigarh, Punjab and Haryana, and another program in CMED Hyderabad for Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So this is very important program, and nearly 1,000 skilled manpower we have developed since 2017. So awareness program, I should not mention it. Many people knows the success story of our awareness program. After 2015, Honorable Prime Minister told awareness is the foremost thing. So we have done with MATE, ICA, ELSINA, CMA. So this awareness program was so popular, we have able to cross 2 lakhs our trained in a community in different 9 verticals, and where the content specific to the stakeholders we have created. It is there in our website greeny.gov.in, and they are being used many times. So if you see the number of download, it is more than 30,000. And the greeny gov.in, if you see the visiting page is 1 crore. So this is one of the successful program. And if you see, there are lots of literature is there. There are posters. There are video we have developed during that time, and also the radio jingles. So they are available freely to download it. And apart from that, we have created 3,000 Greeny champions as an expert who can be used by other agency for similar program. And apart from that, NCERT courses we have developed for MOOCs platform in Diksha and Swayam, and those programs are being used by the teachers, 1,50,000 teachers each year. Then they are further giving the sensitization to their students. So we actually contributed in the country 3 buckets. One is the awareness creation, skill development, and low cost technology. Now one program we are starting, it is already approved. We are going to create 30 clusters in the country using informal sectors, where each clusters at least 1,500 informal will be upgraded their skill, and the recycling using the CMAT technology, NML technology, and CPET technology will be used by informal to extract the material. Then this is basically a pilot, and we are using one scheme of MSME Ministry, CDC scheme, and we have a go ahead from MSME Ministry. So they will be offering 80% of the fund, and 20% will be given by the SPV owner, like the informal operators, and finally it will be handed over to them for running the plant. So maybe this is 30 will be inadequate for the country. It may be required 3,000, but the mass movement will start if these 30 are successful. So one is spec scheme, another is cluster development program. This will be ensuring the resource efficiency in the system, and also this will be actually creating the secondary raw material extraction so that country will be benefited. So new manufacturing sector can be taking hold of those material. Some of the materials, as you know, are not available also now present days. So this is the overall our METI story. We will be always supporting this program. We are giving logo support. I think Pransu could ask for this thing. So METI logo support also we are giving. So this is one of the thing, and this is I should say ongoing activity. We have just initiated to actually realize the benefit of the circular economy, and another decade it will take when the electronics waste vertical will be embraced with the different fruits of we should realize on the circular economy. So I am just ending my discussion here, and if you have some questions, specific question, I can answer.
Thank you, sir. I'll just pick up questions. So there is a question on the IT from the e-commerce point of view, that circularity also essentially means extending the life of products. So how do we boost the adoption of second-hand market products in the Indian IT sector?
Very interesting question. In our action plan, we ensured that right to repair. Somehow our ministry, because our ministry is actually promoting the manufacturing industry. So there are some issues with the manufacturing. We thought that we should take it up in future. But incidentally, Ministry of Consumer Affairs have made some committee where this right to repair issues are being discussed. So at least they are starting with common charger and all those things where Europe is also working. So this is a very preliminary things, but I think that this is one of the important area where India should work, because a lot of mate is also requesting us to open up the refurbishment sector for foreign goods. So if we can manage our own product first, so that will be strengthening our thing, and there are lots of potential for Indian market, that we can say.
Yeah, I can maybe also request Mandeep to comment on this question parallelly, because he runs one of the largest platforms in the country for. So Mandeep leads Cashify. Mandeep, would you like to add to this point? How do we grow the reuse sector?
I think the most important thing in the reuse sector are two aspects: collection of used devices, and then make sure that whatever is collected can, the life cycle can be increased. And a critical component for that is availability of spare parts. Now, that's the biggest challenge. One of the biggest challenges that we as a company face, that once a device is 3 years old, the availability of spare parts is very difficult, and we have to rely on the Chinese supply chain to procure parts from there. The brands are typically not very supportive, and they don't even have spare parts. So I think one thing that I've read recently is the right to repair is coming and becoming active in India, so that should help. Apart from that, what we focused is educating people that you can sell your devices easily. And that's where companies like ours have been, very, prominent. But if there are any programs with the government where they can also promote that, okay, before recycling, it is important that if you can reuse and make those devices available, because India has about 50% of India's population is still using feature phones. So one of ways to, reduce the cost of ownership of a smartphone is by providing good quality refurbished phones. So I think if we work together on this is going to be very helpful.
Another input I can mention, I think Pransu may be knowing, one of the important recommendation in the action plan was service model. In the service model, we have a committee. There also, members are there from different industry association. So manufacturer association having some reservation. Few of the companies were interested. So this is also going very slow, but since the committee has been made, it is taking a longer time maybe. So one day they have one common area we have found. There are they have listed 5-6 products which can be initiated in our ministry. So if it is successful, so entire 80 ministries of Government of India and the state government, so it will be a huge collection of first use product which can be used in a school, college, or different type of other area where they are deprived of this type of high-end equipment, and it will be boosting the longer life of the product. So this is one of the things ministry is also actively working on.
Thank you, Dr. Sandip sir, for all this, being live here.
You please message me or email me.
Yes, I'll reach out.
Thank you very much
for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Over to you, Sreepriya.
Thank you so much, Pranshu, and thank you so much, Dr. Sandip. So before we move on to the next phase, I would just like to express our gratitude to our principal sponsors, Apple and Dell Technologies, for continuing to support us even in season 2. And now I would hand it over to my colleague, Sushant, to take it over for the panel discussion. Over to you, Sushant.
Thank you, Sreepriya. Can I be heard clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was a nice start and a lovely context set to the discussion. I'd just like to share with the attendees here that the idea of this particular webinar, one of the objectives rather, was to kind of analyze the space that exists between generation of e-waste and recycling. So when I say this space, it could be refurbishing, that was spoken about a little earlier, repairing, even dismantling into to making more innovative products. And you'll agree with me if I said that in the context and conversation around e-waste management, recycling generally is at the highest rung of the ladder, while relatively less significance is given to things like refurbishing, repairing, etc. And I'm very glad to hear from Sandip sir's initial remarks that there are going to be initiatives on that front, and that's very encouraging. Having said that, though, the space that we speak about, refurbishing, repairing, dismantling, art that you will hear about recently in a while, there are two things. On one hand, this is a space which has immense scope to induce a positive behavioral change among consumers, among individuals, and we'll see how. Secondly, it also provides, I would say, alternatives to sustainable means of e-waste management, which of course is something we need and is still largely questionable so far in our country. And therefore, to provide their inputs and their perspective, we have a list of 4 esteemed panelists with us, and it is now my privilege to introduce each one of them. We have with us from the Jammu Kashmir Pollution Control Board, the scientist Anuradha Gupta. She will give us the perspective of the agencies authorized to oversee implementation of rules. We also have with us Mrs. Richa Shrivastava. She is the co-founder of Makers Asylum. Makers Asylum is a community maker space, that's how you term it, I think, Richa, which prioritizes a hands-on approach for education, learning, innovation, etc. We also have with us Mandeep Manocha, who is co-founder of and CEO of Cashify. A lot of us have come across Cashify. It's an organization which provides a platform to procure used electronic gadgets, primarily phones, and also then refurbish it and sell it back into the market. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Vishwanath Mallabadi, who is an independent artist. No prizes for guessing what is his basis, what is his source for his artwork. Yes, you guessed it right. It is indeed e-waste. So a very warm welcome and thank you very much to our panelists for taking out the time to join us today. I'll start with Anuradha ma'am from the Jammu Kashmir Pollution Control Board. Ma'am, tell us about some of the challenges that you've faced with regard to implementation of the e-waste rules. And maybe if you can touch upon any initiatives that the Pollution Control Board may have undertaken when it comes to informal repair refurbishment sector in the state. Ma'am, over to you. Yes.
Thank you, Sushant. Very good afternoon to all the participants and all the other panelists also. It's a privilege to be part of this discussion. I have been earlier also, previous year also, there was a discussion on this e-waste. No, as we all of us know that now there are new e-waste rules 2022, which are in place now, replacing 2016 rules. And of course, there are a lot of constraints and there are a lot of challenges that we were already facing. And with the new rules, I must first of all say they do need a revisit and rethinking. First of all, when we think about, because the discussion is all about filling the gap between the collection and the recycling, that is refurbishment and reuse, that is very, very important. And to facilitate all this, we need to, first of all, as I was happy to learning from Dr. Sudhir earlier, that bringing the informal sector and providing skill and enhancement of this capacity building of the informal sector, that is very, very important. And because when there is collection, first of all, in the new rules I will mention, collection is there, but new rules don't talk about how the collection will take place. There is a more talk on the trading of the certificates between the producers and the recyclers. And so there is a huge gap, you can say, that a person, even a regulatory body, is not able to understand that how to vigil that collection system, because earlier the PRO definition was there in the rules, that has also been removed. There is no mention of any collection points or collection centers. I think this is the most important thing that we need to be very much clear about. Because at the state level, at the UT level, a regulatory body can only monitor, physically verify at the ground level that how all this collection is taking place. Generation of certificates and trading between the certificates, that is a secondary step. And of course, refurbishment is important, and it do takes place, but in a hidden way at very small places. People are not admitting openly that they refurbish the equipments and they can sell these equipments as second-hand gadgets at and on very you can say small shops, through very small shops. So this thing, as I was learning, it needs to be subsidized, of course, and incentives needs to be provided for refurbishment and repair. And we need to readily accept the informal sector, because informal sector is very, very important if we really need to accelerate our process of collection and refurbishment, because they are the best people, they are skilled enough, and they are the best, you can say, raw material provider to fill in the gap between the chain throughout the e-waste value chain. So every time we talk about the role of informal sector, but every time rules just omit their discussion. It can be included in the guidelines that I would rather suggest that these informal sector, they can be identified as collection points. Why not? I don't understand. They can be identified as collection points because already the producers have to ensure, or recyclers, I would rather say, under the new rules 2022, they have to ensure collection of the e-waste. And it is only informal sector again. While during the implementation of 2016 rules, again, it was the informal sector who was playing a major role providing the e-waste to all the PROs who were working at the ground level. One more important thing that is missing in the rules, Sushantji, that I will mention is that PCBs have no source of information regarding collection, refurbishment, repair. That is not mentioned in the rules. Who will provide the data to PCBs? That how much waste has been collected, whether through the recyclers, whether through the producers, where it is being collected, how much it has been collected, no mention is there in the rules. CPCB should get details from the producers like earlier. It should not be a producer-wise detail. Again, that is a very important point to taken care of. Earlier, the details was provided producer-wise. It's a very, very massive information. It is very hard to explore producer-wise because all the producers are not active in all the states or UTs. I think collection points details should be provided at the level of collection agencies which are hired by the producers, like PROs they were earlier. And I think now also it will be the PROs only who can help in the collection. So PRO's detail is very important. There should be a provision for providing quarterly return to the concerned pollution control boards or pollution control committees regarding collection by the respective PROs, so that there will be clear-cut picture with all the PCBs regarding how much waste has been collected. And secondly, if the refurbishment and repair is subsidized, incentives are provided, and government-to-government strict direction, again, that should be provided. Government-to-government strict direction, why I am mentioning, because since 2016 it was mentioned that it is the duty of the Department of Industry to identify a separate space for dismantling, and Department of Labor to identify informal sector, provide them skill development, and just to provide them a space for recycling. But nothing has been done so far. So government-to-government strict directions are very important. And then there is inter-government coordination. That is very important. Second important thing, that is identification of unauthorized producers. So GST again, strict direction may be provided at the central level to the GST department, because still now we didn't receive any information from the GST department, because they don't maintain any records and they have no way to identify the informal unauthorized producers. So this is a very important thing to understand, that we have no way to identify the unauthorized producers who are selling their waste into the informal sector. So again, in the rules right now, annual report which was supposed to be submitted by bulk consumers, because bulk consumers are the main source of e-waste generation in any state, any UT. Of course, we have to ensure that they should channelize their e-waste to only authorized dismantlers and recyclers. But in the present rules, they have been relieved of from the responsibility to submit annual reports, which is not a healthy point. How the PCB or a PCC shall ensure now? It's not practically possible to visit each and every bulk consumer to ensure, because again, there is a second challenge because of the definition of bulk consumer. There is a change in the definition that bulk consumer means any entity who has used 1,000 number of electrical or electronic equipments at any point of time. So no one is going to tell you the real picture that he has really used 1,000 number of E or not. Everybody will try to escape from. I think the earlier definition was better. When there was a clear-cut definition, 20 employees or more. So that was good. And submission of annual reports, I think that is very important. That is very important to track the e-waste flow. And in fact, central portal should be developed by CPCB, that all the bulk consumers identified in a state or UT shall submit, in fact, their quarterly returns to that central portal. There will be a centralized data center shall be built up regarding the e-waste flow, that this much has been generated in this state by so many bulk consumers, and this has been channelized, or this has been lying stored since so many years. So this is very, very important. How we'll be able to identify that where the e-waste, I have many departments in my mind, I know by name, but I won't mention them there. They keep on storing their e-waste since years, more than 10 years even. There are departments. Particularly the problem is with government departments, that how should they dispose of there are so many challenges. They have to follow a proper channel to dispose of the e-waste. So it's very important to revisit the definition of bulk consumers, and to revisit the provision that they should be asked to submit the annual reports to ensure that e-waste flows in a proper channel. And having said this, I think this was just, I wanted to share what are the challenges, because new rules, I was diving through again and again under the new rules, that what is the actual role of PCB and how are we going to identify how the e-waste is flowing in our state. We are not able, because there are so many gaps that need to be filled. So I hope that this platform, through this platform, some inputs must be shared with the authorities, concerned authorities at the central level, and that will be helpful. Thank you so much.
Sushant, you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you very much, Anuradha madam. Very valid set of concerns. And I hope going forward, these will be seriously looked into and improved. Some of the points that you mentioned, especially around the informal sector, hopefully, like Sandip sir mentioned, will be perhaps taken care of in the due course of time. Over to Mandeep ji. Mandeep ji, tell us about Cashify. How did it start? How did you go about starting it? What is the business model like? Also, to build on the question that was asked earlier about the second-hand market, you know, there is an apprehension, at least my mother always told me, stay away from second-hand products. So what is it? What are some of the incentives that you have put in that would, you know, deal with this issue, this apprehension that currently exists towards second-hand products? You're on mute, Mandeep ji.
Hey, thanks, Sushant. That's a lot of
Yes.
questions in one questions loaded in. I'll try to answer the way I remember.
Sure,
So first of all,
I'll
see,
remind you.
Cashify is a platform where you can sell your old devices in a very simple manner. So if you have an old device lying in your drawer, which most of us do, and we think that we'll use that device at some point as a spare phone, which never happens. So we make it easy for you to sell your devices. We give you a fair value. We come to your home and pick those devices. So we are not in a business of recycling. We are a step before that, wherein we help you to increase the life cycle of the product. And in India, where a large portion of our population does not have access to this technology, especially smartphones, our aim is to actually make those devices affordable so that more and more people can move from feature phones to smartphones, or fulfill their aspirational needs of buying, say, an iPhone at some point, or a Samsung Galaxy series at some point at a much lower price point. Why we started this business? We started as an e-waste collection company, but very soon we figured that people don't like to give away their waste for free. So if you put a monetary value to the waste, I think people are more willing to part with that. So I think that was the basic genesis that we had, and we said, rather than focusing on absolute waste, let's focus on stuff which people can sell. And in a country where we sell newspapers, we sell boxes, we sell everything. Like if your mother said that stay away from secondhand phones, I'm sure your mother would also sell everything that you have in the house for a value. So that is where we started. We built a platform, made it very easy for people to part away with their electronics. And I think today the major focus that we have is still to educate people that why you should sell your old devices. And we focus on 2 or 3 very simple things. One, it is value which is lying in your drawers. Like if you have an iPhone, say 7 lying in your house, you can get 7,000-8,000 rupees today. Or if you have any old device which is lying in your house, you can get significant value. So make sure that your device comes out. One, you're not holding on to resources as well. As Dr. Sandip said, 30 billion worth of material is needed. I think if you can bring out those devices from your closets, it's actually there'll be less pressure on the environment. The second thing we focus on is we tell people that if you're selling on Cashify, we'll make sure that your data is secure, which is the worry for most of the people who don't sell their electronic gadgets, especially laptops and smartphones. So we make sure that the moment we're picking up the devices, we clean the data. When it comes back to a facility, we make sure that we run data cleaning software so that your data is secure. Okay. The third thing that we do is we make sure that these are repaired and refurbished in a nice manner and be made available to people who actually need them. So this is what our supply chain is, and I think we've been able to. It's a for-profit business. We sell to people, but we've also made some social impact. We give out a lot of these devices to school students who can't afford it. And I think the best thing that has happened to me over the last 10 years of my journey is a lot of school students after their exams reaching out or writing emails that we did not have access to schools, especially in COVID times. But with the smartphone, we were able to study, and that was the reason we could pass our exams. Those are some examples which keep us going as a company, as an entity. Now, your last question, what are the incentives or why should people buy a refurbished phone? Look, a new phone versus refurbished phone, there's nothing different. It's just that somebody has used that product for say a year and a half. When it comes to us, we do comprehensive quality checks. We change whatever parts are needed to be changed. We put a 6 months to 12-month warranty and sell it to the customer who's willing to buy it at a 30 to 40% discount. Now, where Cashify is different is we provide after-sales support. We have 200 service centers across the country, and we are now making, educating people that it's okay and it's a good idea to buy a refurbished product. And we say ki yes, smart bano, refurbished kharido. So that is what we are trying to focus on.
Okay, a quick thank you, Mandeep. A quick follow-up question before I go to Richa. Can you tell us, is there a difference between repair and refurbish? Is they similar, same thing, difference? And just elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah. So this word, we've invented words like refurbish. We've invented words like entrepreneurship. These are all such fancy words for basic business terms. Okay, it's very simple. Your phone screen is broken. I can say that I've repaired the phone by putting a new screen, or I can say I've refurbished the phone by putting a new screen. It's the same thing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Interesting. Richa, tell us about Makers Asylum. Something very different. I've read up that y'all had done some terrific work during COVID, not maybe directly related to e-waste, but in terms of making a difference to the community. Tell us a little bit about that and how you started, and maybe some success stories as well.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Super nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's interesting to kind of like see the context of this conversation from a very top-down kind of approach as well, where we're talking about policy, we're talking about large government initiatives. We're of course also talking about companies. I mean, I think what I'm going to talk a little bit more about is from awareness building perspective as to where our focus has been around education. But just a little context and background about Makers Asylum for everyone who does not know what we do is we started the space back in 2013 out of a little garage in Bandra and Bombay to create a space of experimentation for people to come together, share tools, share ideas, and make things. So in effect, it's a community space where anyone, it could be anyone, it could be Sushant, it could be Mandeep, it could be anyone who wants to go from thinking about an idea to actually making it. Now, while this space started off as a DIY space where people could come together, share tools, what started happening over the years is that a lot of people who came in the space were really curious about bringing their ideas to life, and how to use technology to kind of really do that, right? And that's where we focus on, where we started designing a lot of workshops and educational programs where we help you kind of go from thinking to actually building stuff, right? So how do you go through that journey and what that entails? And of course, so that's one part of what Makers Asylum does as an organization, which is the education. And of course, there's a lot of layers of repair, reuse, circular economy, everything that's aligned to a lot of these terminologies that is inherent to the maker mindset or the maker culture that we've been trying to build at this space for many years. And of course, globally as well, if you see this discussion in the maker community has always been inherent to how the ethos of the space and people are. And so that's one part of what we do. And of course, the other part of what Makers Asylum also does is involving the larger community into open research and development, where we focus a lot on open source projects that we do, which involves communities of like-minded interdisciplinary folks like yourself and mine to come together and actually build data sets and research which are open for other people to also kind of like take and implement in their local communities. So yeah, so that's largely where we are. So programs, so education and innovation, open innovation, I would say, and that's where we are at. But interestingly, like I was saying, is that as a mindset around making, reuse and repair are like inherent to making, right? If you are a maker, if you are somebody who likes building stuff and making things with your hands or whatever, I think it comes very inherently that you will use resources frugally. You will also look at extension, life cycle extension of your products, whatever that you're building, because I think that mindset is something that inherently triggers that, behavior around products, right? So I think one of the biggest things for us has been around our programs, how to incorporate this mindset so that more and more people adapt to it. And that's what we've been primarily doing. And of course, given that we are in a very resource constrained, country like India as well, how do you think about innovation from a frugal perspective, right? So frugal innovation, jugaad, the mindset around jugaad is so inherent to, making. And how do you kind of like really have the youth and young people really think about it from that perspective? Because given, we've all grown up in a more consumeristic environment, where we kind of like, we buy stuff to throw it, right? Like the use and throw culture has been always been there. So just orienting that process to, making, breaking, but also creating out of it is what, we really focus on, right? So that's where we are at. And just to give context about why I think Sushant and Sreepriya invited me to this conversation as well, is that in COVID we were doing a lot of work around healthcare. We started something called the M19 initiative. The idea was to support healthcare workers with products that they needed at the time. So back in March 2020, when everybody went into the lockdown, we decided to stay back at our space in Mumbai and thought that we could use our tools, which are, by the way, also donated, mostly like 3D printers, laser cutters, a wood shop, metal shop, all kinds of stuff you'll find at our space, basically. So we thought that we could use these tools to actually help the healthcare workers with certain things that they needed at the time, because we had the skills, we had the mindset, we knew how to kind of like use that. So we were like, okay, fine, let's see what we can do. So we started something called the M19 initiative. And in the beginning, we started with a very basic product, which was the face shield. At that point, I think in the March last week, the government had face shields on number 3 of their procurement list, because it was something that you were not manufacturing here in India, because we were not like PPE manufacturers back in the day and whatever else, which is now, of course, drastically different. But it was number 3 on the procurement list of the government, and there was nobody making it, and you couldn't get it from outside. So we started using the laser cutting machine that we had at our space to design some of these face shields and started distributing it to some of these hospitals in, Mumbai. But interestingly, what we started realizing is that, of course, as a small space, we only had limited resources. There were no shops open. There was no material available. There was nothing right around us. So how do you kind of like think about scaling in a distributed manufacturing, setup and environment? And how do you kind of like, have this small product like a face shield kind of go to a lot of hospitals, right? So we, in the spirit of making and sharing and how we open sourced, the designs, and we started activating, makers in different parts of the country who started making these and taking these designs up and using their local communities to serve their local, hospitals. So in the matter of 0 to 49 days, we were able to make about 1 million face shields, which was actually much more than anybody, any central manufacturing agency could make at that time. But this was done with the community. So that means to say that there was, filmmakers in Guwahati making these with their, local, spaces like the laser cutting workshops. There was a 13-year-old in Gujarat that was making it at his home. So they were like, it was a mix of community, that was doing this. So that's how the initiative began. And eventually, of course, there was a lot of exciting research paper and all of that written all across the world. Cambridge did a report on it. A lot of other folks also did a lot. We got a lot of media attention. There's a documentary series on it in Channel News Asia. Anyway, so a lot of good things happened, but that led to the second wave when we were working on oxygen concentrators. Now, oxygen concentrators as a product was not as simple as a face shield, but was it's more complicated. But we were able to gather about 600 to 700 people on an open research where we were building these using indigenous parts in India. And we were able to that the openness of the whole initiative kind of leads to accelerated innovation as well, right? So that's what started happening. But fast forward to that, what happened is at the time when India was kind of dabbling with the oxygen crisis, we were importing a lot of oxygen concentrators from all across the world. And incidentally, we were called by the Rotary Club at Margao in Goa, where we are now, saying that they had 3,000 oxygen concentrators that were flown in, but they're not working. So that was a very interesting triggering point for us to kind of like think about using what we'd learned about making oxygen concentrators into helping fix and repair what was coming into Margao at that point in time. So that's how we started this entire, project around the focus on repair and reuse. But interestingly, also Goa is a very interesting place where, there are a lot of scuba divers over here, because the sea is right here. And scuba divers overall are very good at dealing with oxygen in itself, right? So we actually, in our community, there were a lot of scuba divers who were helping us build oxygen concentrators. But then we thought that there's a nice kind of transferable skill that we could use to actually fix and repair also. So that's how we got funded by the EU and a few other organizations to do a research around repair of medical grade equipment, but more so from a perspective of how you can involve open communities, right? Like people like who are engineers, doctors, all of us, right, in community and citizens who can actually also do this. And how that research was basically around how do you translate these transferable skills, especially in a resource constrained environment or a very in a pandemic-like situation, or a situation where you don't have access to a lot of things. So that's what we were doing.
Terrific.
And interestingly, we were able to kind of like find a lot of really exciting stuff, and we were able to activate a lot of communities around it to repair and reuse as well. But of course, there are larger challenges that came into picture because oxygen concentrators are medical grade equipment, right? And what do you think of, when you think about legalities of repair for medical grade equipment? There's a lot of liability that comes onto the person repairing it as well, right? So how do you kind of like, I mean, of course, we don't have answers to everything, but it's a thought around how do you kind of like look at these kind of settings? You look at resource availability, but also at the same time, you can, how do you kind of like really activate the community to also, progress towards this direction? So that was, that's what we were doing at that point in time. But I'll stop with that just from a context perspective. But yeah, we'll take other questions.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Richa. Vishwanath, over to you. Of all the possible materials available, which could be a source of art, what made you choose electronic waste given the complex nature of the material? If you could just, touch upon that to start off with.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. Am I audible?
You are, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I have a few questions with Richa and Mandeep. Probably I'll ask end of this one. My talk.
Yes, we'll have about 5-10 minutes for a Q&A.
Yeah. Just remind me. So let me introduce myself. I'm a upcycler, which you can call me as a something similar to refurbishment, but I add more aesthetic value to it. So that is how my journey started way back, almost a decade. So I started exploring e-waste and then came across a lot of innovative things, which I'm very much excited. Like you might have seen my video. So how many products I did over almost 10-15 years. Very interesting. I'm very much fascinated using e-waste. Somehow, I don't know, those forms, textures, colors, the moment I see, it make me do something very innovative. So those kind of things I'm very much keen on. And coming back to the context that how we reuse our resources, like recycling thing, basically how we reuse is, for example, as Mandeep said, we can refurbish. So refurbish is one thing which is very important, and I feel like upcycling. If we take upcycling as a very big business and then make government convince them and make a very effective platform wherein we can create a lot of usable products and then market it. It's a very good viable model, which was ignored even by Dr. Sandip and Mandeep also. We can think of this one. And to give you a quick example, like for example, we can use a very simple clock. I just got it here. Very simple table clock. Can you see this? This is a very interesting product. Instead of having a very conventional kind of clock, we can reuse e-waste and then create something like this, which is very, very much appreciated by everybody. So I'm more interested in the texture and the form, which is very looks very good for me and very usable products. So something like this, I have a lot of over 500 products I have. So we can make use of this e-waste very effectively and then transform into art, like very good art installation we can create. A huge installation and a lot of products we can use it for in our house also. So that is my core focus idea, how to use e-waste. It could be used like, for example, I'll give one more example. This is a very usable product which is made out of plastic, like keyboard keys and some other interesting this one, no? Yeah, colorful. This is just injection molding kind of thing. So these kind of things, if we start making it known, so that a lot of this e-waste, instead of going into recycling the chain, we can do upcycling and area to address. And coming back to the question, can I ask Sushant, or we have any other?
Sorry?
Sushant? No,
yes,
can
yes.
I ask Mandeep a question?
No, we'll do that later. We'll have
Okay.
specific time for a Q&A.
Okay, fine.
A quick follow-up question, Mr. Mallabadi, to you.
Yeah.
If I were to play devil's advocate, and this is not a personal view, but just playing devil's advocate, one of the verticals of circular economy or circularity talks about reuse, reducing dependency on raw material. What if one were to say to you that perhaps art doesn't meet that requirement of reducing the need for raw material elsewhere? What would be your reply to someone who said that?
Right. See, there are two things. One is resources, like natural resources. We can use it and create the manufacturing chain. For example, mobile phone. Mobile phone requires a lot of natural resources like copper, gold, palladium, cadmium. So that is one conventional thing. Second thing is using e-waste and try to extract. So I'll give you a very practical example, like these kind of materials, rare metals, which can be extracted from e-waste. That is one and the process is very cumbersome. Like it's not like a very easy chemical process. Where I see my value is to transform this e-waste and making it into a very aesthetic object, where you don't need any extraction process or no chemical engineering is required. It's a very effective way of using e-waste. For example, I'll just give you a quick example. These are very useful things. I don't know whether you are able to see. These are extracted from hard disk drive. So can you see this? This I found it so interesting shapes, and I can make very interesting murals out of this. I have some 1,000 pieces, so I can create very interesting form. So those kind of things, I wanted to highlight and make use of this e-waste. So that is what my basic resource, like something which is having no value, I make it more, add value to it. One more example I'll show you, which is very amazing thing. This is a film PCB. I don't know. This is very old technology. This is actually film PCB, which is used inside a mobile, or I don't know. I'm not a very technical person, but can you see the texture? How interesting it is. So those kind of things, I try to highlight and then create very interesting sculptures. So something like this, if you create in a very big mega scale, it will be very effective, creating a social awareness and how. Yeah. Please.
Completely agree. Thank you very much, Vishwanath ji, for those points. Quick closing remarks from our panelists. Anuradha ma'am, you mentioned about the various challenges, roadblocks that you have. Any suggestions in terms of policy or regulatory interventions or other means by which the process, your job, could be easier or streamlined a little, especially in your state and given your experience?
Yeah, Sushant. Within the Center Pollution Control Board (MOEF), that I was also discussing in my while sharing with you in my inputs, that it should be made mandatory for bulk consumers to submit their annual reports. That is very important. And those reports should also include, earlier it was also including the data on the refurbishment, that how much waste is also being refurbished. And if a bulk consumer donates some refurbished or the equipments which are in use and only have been replaced by the new one, they can donate it to the schools or colleges or the persons who are in need. It may be their subordinate staff. So that is a good. So these things should be encouraged by declaring, in fact, the bulk consumers as a green champions. In fact, anything can be done like this, because the motivation is very important to encourage reuse and refurbishment. That is very, very important. Like I was saying, that why waste keeps on lying stored with the bulk consumers for longer years. So until and unless there is not, besides the two things need to go parallel. First of all, it should be mandatory to dispose of their e-waste within a prescribed time period. Like other stakeholders, producers and manufacturers, there is a fixed timeline to store the e-waste. Same should be for bulk consumers also. And secondly, there should be encouragement. Green champions, they may identify the green champions. And secondly, there should be a stress on the collection mechanism, because there is just one example that I have got a refrigerator in my home which is out of use, right? Like Mandeep ji was telling us that they do provide doorstep collection service. So how do they manage it, and whether it is possible in any remote area or in any area, if a person like me calls upon them that I have got only one refrigerator with me which is lying out of use. Because why I'm talking of refrigerator, because large size equipments or heavy weight equipments, they are difficult to be carried, disposed of by the consumers or the bulk consumers. So these things, we need to think over it, how to make it easier in an affordable manner, practical manner and affordable manner. So that is very important. That is why collection mechanism needs to be strengthened a lot, and these things need to be made clarified in the rules itself. That how, first of all, before the recycler plays its role and sells its certificate to producer, first of all, how we will collect, that should be made clear in the rules. And how the PCB will get the data regarding the collection. That is very, very important. Collection data should be shared. And how much waste has been picked up by the recycler, again, further, that needs to be shared. That's all. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Anuradha, madam. Over to Mandeep. Mandeep, a lot of speakers have spoken about the informal sector and the impact. How does the informal sector impact your business, given lesser regulatory compliances, and therefore I would presume higher purchase costs, if at all? And secondly, do you have any examples to share with us where you may have integrated or worked with the informal sector as part of your business?
Yeah. So, see, I think we don't see the informal sector as a competition. We've actually integrated with them in a very seamless way. So the business that we do have three parts: sourcing of used devices, adding value, and then selling those devices back. Now, very early on, we figured that selling is not a challenge, given the nature of the consumer strata in the company. People want devices at a cheaper price point. Value addition was some bit of challenge, but a lot of people were doing it in a fragmented manner. The challenge has always been, how do we get more material? And if I asked from perspective or raise of hands, how many of you have an old phone lying in your drawer, the chances are 70-80% would say yes. Now, what we figured is, if we can partner with the informal sector to collect these devices, I think that's where we could make some impact. So today, about 40% of the devices that we collect essentially are collected by the informal sector when they go to customer's doorstep and pick up those devices. And these are people who have small shops in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Where Cashify comes into the picture is, we handle all the marketing and communication of educating the customer that you can sell. We provide the pricing engine, where we tell the customer, okay, this is the price of your product, basis our diagnostic tools. But the last leg of going to people's house, buying those devices and ultimately selling those devices back is done by the informal sector. And today about 65-70,000 devices per month are actually done through this channel. So we have about 500 such vendors who are attached with us across the country. So if you bring in technology and create certain processes which can improve their livelihood, make a difference to what is important for them. Like, we figured that what is important for them was getting access to more devices coming in. Selling and value addition has not been a challenge. So we solved that, and we saw a lot of adoption on our platform through the informal sector.
I see. So technology and a proper price point, I think, would be two critical aspects to work and integrate along with the informal sector. Thank you, Mandeep ji. Richa, you've told us about your work with the community and about behavioral change. Tell us in a couple of minutes how can this be extended now to e-waste? If you were to also look to expand into other geographies, I mean, within India, what would be the challenges, and what is it that you can an organization like yours can do with respect to e-waste?
So, I mean, like I said, we've been a community space, and I think a lot of the work that happens at the space is also driven by a lot of effort and motivation from the community, right? Which is citizens like ourselves, right? So at the end of the day, inherently being somebody, people inclined towards doing work with it, there's always been a lot of examples of various things that have happened in the past as well. So like Vishwanath is obviously, he's been showing his pieces of art. We also have a lot of artists and designers who come and use different kind of, ways to create art and stuff like that as well. I'll give you an example of something interesting. So we had this student of ours whose name is Ganesh. He was recommended to us by Teach for India. We were working with them at that point in time on a few things. So when Teach for India kind of reached out, they said that he's really bad at academics, but he can make stuff, right? So can you guys take him in and help him kind of orient towards making? So we worked with him for about a year and a half, and he's of course a prodigy maker because he's kind of inclined towards using his hands for various things. But interestingly, he designed this really beautiful display, which we still have at our space right now, using beer bottles. So he kind of took up beer bottles and old bottles, and he created this displays where you can actually flash whatever that you want to. It's got LEDs and stuff like that at the back, and you can display whatever. So we've been using that, and he's been training a lot of other people and doing a lot of really exciting work around teaching others as well how to repair, fix, and stuff like that. One of the conversations that we've been having with a lot of organizations is to create a theme. I mean, a maker space is already a space that is community-led and all of that kind of stuff, where a lot of things can happen, right? It's an intersection and a melting pot for people to also come. In case of Mandeep's case, where he's saying that collection is an issue, it can also be a place where things like that can also happen. So we've been dabbling with the conversation around how do we create a thematic piece around recycling and a repair lab inside the space as well, which is focused on the theme around SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. So I'll be happy to kind of extend that conversation with others on this panel and see what we can do over there. But of course, challenges of something like what we run, which is a community space and an education space which is non-funded and self-sustainable, just to expand it in different places and also bringing in the culture is the biggest challenge. Creating a space like this is easier, but it's about bringing in the culture. And when the culture is about conversations, collaboration, and the mindset building around that. And I think that's the biggest piece where I think when we have like-minded people who can run these spaces across the country, then I'm sure there'll be a possibility of kind of going everywhere. But at this point, I think, the idea is to how do you kind of translate the culture and the mindset? And I think that's the biggest challenge.
Very, very fair point. Yes. Thank you, Richa, for all your comments and contribution. My final question, at least from my side, to Mr. Mallabadi. couple of things. One is e-waste does have hazardous components. You would also need to dispose e-waste in an authorized manner. One. Secondly, have you had any interaction with producers in terms of being a front for awareness creation through your e-waste, for example? Or have you had any interaction with maybe you're from Karnataka, so the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board, in terms of how they can use your art and talents in order to perhaps further the awareness campaigns around responsible disposal of e-waste? Any such interaction that you could share with us? A couple of minutes is all we have, and then we can hear questions. Over to you.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be a little fast. So I had interacted with PCB Bangalore chairman, but unfortunately they are not so keen because they have so much other things to look at. So upcycling is not a prime focus for them. So I met him personally and given all the suggestions, but I don't know. You have to take it forward in a serious manner. By the way, last year,
producer, sir. What about
no,
electronic producer? Nothing.
No. So let me finish that. So the thing is, last year I made a world map on World Environment Day, which was 8 feet by 6 feet, which was now installed in Pollution Control Board. So that was nice experience, but fortunately, I got a chance to enter into this area. But the very unfortunate thing is I'm not getting enough support from other people. For example, if we take this upcycling as a very important initiative and ask everybody to contribute in this one, this will make a lot of impact. Even as Richa said, the innovation part. Quickly, I'll ask one question. Like, I'm very keen on innovating a lot of products, like, for example, mechanical things, a lot of other products. So usually, without missing, I go to Kavadi Bazaar, Sunday Bazaar, every Sunday, where I pick up a lot of products, like hundreds of all discarded products, and then create something very interesting out of that. So that is what I call it innovation. It's not like having a 3D printer and a laser cutting machine. I don't use it very often. So what I do is I collect a lot of things, a lot of junk material, and then do something very interesting composition, like sculptures and all. So, for example, like Richa, can I ask you a question? You are scared.
Sure, I mean, yes.
Yeah. So, any of your students, if they have visited Kavadi Bazaar, can I ask you a straightforward question?
Yeah, please. This is your question. Have they visited the Kavadi? Yes, of course. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is very good thing.
I mean, the first part of making is also prototyping with things available around to you, right? You don't have to use a machine and equipment at the first level of it. So yes, absolutely.
Correct. So what I feel is innovation happens from there, like where everybody discard their products more, which nobody wants to use it. So those things you should use it as a innovation thing, and then make use of them. So that is what my idea is. So I would definitely like to visit.
There is quite a range of how one would define innovation. One would look at a very high technology space as well as can be as something as aesthetically pleasing like you're doing. So I think that is something is a whole debate in itself. I think we can.
Why I'm telling you, I was part of Nokia for 2 years in Finland. So I used to do a lot of UI and UX designing. So how this idea came, the technology is growing, like every day you get some new models and new features and all that. So what will happen to the old phones? What will happen to the key phone? So those phones I collected from Gujri, Kavadi Bazaar, and then I created one very innovative concept, art installation. So that is what it makes a major difference, like to the general people, the mass people, how they'll see those mobile phones. And I have very
Absolutely.
quick.
So in fact, that is why we have such a range of panelists here. You have a very valid point in terms of changing mindsets, awareness, etc. But I think a holistic approach where we are also looking at refurbishing, repair, recycling, as well as awareness, I think it would be very necessary. But if I may interrupt, Anuradha ma'am, you had a question. You have your hand raised. If you'd like to, please go ahead.
Yeah, Sushantji, in fact, it is not a question. I just wanted to add one of the input I was having in my mind regarding the things that can be included in the rules if they are redrafted, revisited, because that is a very important point. When we think about or discuss about anything to be managed, we need to have, first of all, inventorization. That is very, very important. Although till now the inventorization is being carried out at the central point only. Reason being that users either don't maintain or they don't want to share the state-wise or UT-wise sales data with the pollution control boards. I would rather say they don't want to share. In fact, neither the rules ask them to do so. So there is a restriction that on one side PCBs are asked to make inventorization, but on the other side there is no mention, there is no provision asking the producers to share the sales data. Then how is it possible? So this is a very conflicting situation that needs to be taken care of.
Absolutely, absolutely. Point taken, ma'am. I think I'm done from my side. Sreepriya, you want to take over for the Q&A session? Vishwanath ji, did you have a question for Mandeep, I think, as well?
Yeah.
Please,
can I ask a quick question? Okay, Mandeep.
Please.
As you are into refurbishment thing, no, I was wondering, suppose I have a very high-end laptop which is costing more than $1 lakh. How do you evaluate it? There is one part is refurbishment, is the repair part, and then making it working. So first thing I need to know is how do we evaluate the product? What is the value? Like suppose a 1 lakh product, how you refurbish it and how much you sell it for, Mandeep?
It's a simple question, but the answer is a bit difficult. Difficult. Because everybody who's bought an item for X always thinks that it is in the best quality and I should get the maximum buck for it. But the reality is that, it is a function of a lot of different things. What is the vintage of the product? What is a similar kind of product available today at what price point? What is the demand of that kind of product today in the second-hand market? So the final outcome of the buying price is very, very linked to what that old product can be sold off to a new incoming buyer. But it also depends on what is the condition. So what we do is we do comprehensive diagnostic of that product at the doorstep, which would include checking the device functionally, making sure that the physical aspect of the device are intact. And once we have a comprehensive report, through our pricing engine, we tell the customer this is the best price that we can give you. Now it is a back calculation of how much will we be able to sell that product at a later stage. It's that simple, but it's a sum of parts of various permutation and combinations. So I will not be able to tell you that a device that you may have bought for 1 lakh rupees 5 years ago, what would be my buying price today, in such a simple conversation. But once we do the diagnostic and figure out the condition of the product, we'll be able to give you the best price that we can give. And it's all algo based system that we built.
Sure.
Right. Thanks. And one more very similar. This one same in line with that question. Like for example, you said no, the detailed diagnostic. But sometimes what happens, you may not be able to find the substitute, like for example, some electronic component. Then what you will do? When you will say like this is end of product, like they cannot be refurbished.
So if a product is not switching on, then we don't buy it because we don't know what's there inside it. But if we buy something which is switching on, and for example, if a certain critical component is not available, then we harvest the device for the spare parts which is there in that device. So for example, if the motherboard of your device is not working and I can't find a motherboard replacement anywhere, so we'll rip open the whole product and, you know, keep those spare parts in inventory for any new product that, you know, comes into the door and we need to repair and refurbish the system.
See what happens, the SMD
Vishwanath
level,
we are running out of time.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
So
Sure.
Thank you so much for these very interesting conversations.
Yeah,
I'll just like to sum up some of the things. Actually, this was a fantastic conversation because while it was very divergent, it was also converging, you know, because, for example, you know, and loved the whole dialogue from Anuradha ji. With the new rules, I think it is becoming very complex because collection systems are left completely undefined. And unless we can create collection systems, this also came up very strongly with the dialogue that Mandeep initiated, that how do you actually extend the life? If you don't get the product, then forget, you know, recycling or refurbishment, you just don't have it. I mean, so unless we create seriously, you know, easy systems for people to participate, and especially Karo Sambhav's own work points out two specific things. We need to provide ease to people, which means, you know, because today even food is getting delivered, people are expecting and someone to come to your doorstep and pick it up. Second thing which people are expecting is trust. That can I trust the system, whether it is from a data security point of view, or even if they are thinking environment first, then am I giving it to the right organization? Are they truly going to do what they are, you know, saying they will do? And these two loops are super critical. On top of it, there is the expectation of the price, and as Mandeep very rightly said, that linkage is with the average, you know, with the price point at which the product was bought. Even when we are talking of completely crushed products that we get in our own system, people expect, okay, uska 10% price to de do, uska 5% price to de do. Sorry, this is completely crushed, it's broken, it's nothing. No, but फिर भी 5% to de do. So there is this continued challenge, and unless you look at models like refurbishment, reharvesting, which again Mandeep mentioned, it becomes very difficult to get the products back. So just to continue with what you know, what we heard from Anuradha ji, I think, you know, just to share with you, Anuradha ji, this is a very, very common point of view for most pollution control boards. I think majority of pollution control boards are today struggling. How do we solve the problem at a population scale? Not in a pilot here and there, but something which truly matters. Something, you know, agar hum Atmanirbhar Bharat ki baat kar rahe hain, and if we are looking at manufacturing in India, we will need tons and tons of materials which are today getting lost to waste streams. So how do we get them back? How do we get ownership? And that requires very different sort of effort, especially at the collection side. I think efforts of what Vishwanath ji are doing or what Richa is trying to do, I think they are super critical, super important from a community awakening point of view. How do we make sure that at least it resonates with people ki ye waste hai, you know, and something can be done? While, you know, we can't create enough artwork, you know, because they are just, waste amount is just too much. You can't create artwork out of it. But I think it has a significant symbolic role in awakening the community or engaging, you know, like what Richa mentioned. So I think I love the, you know, diversity while the convergence. If we look at some of the points which have come up during the course of conversation, and, you know, we can jointly answer. I think there is a question on, you know, retailers. What is happening with retailers? Retailers are today not covered under the purview of the rules. Retailers do have access to consumers on a direct basis and could play a very, very significant role both from a repair point of view, refurbishment point of view, as well as a recycling point of view. But the rules today don't cover them at all. Actually, almost all the rules of EPR in India are not paying any attention to retailers. So what do we do about it? I don't know. But maybe a collective voice, a collective report can be sent that this is a very, very important stakeholder. Another point which has come up is on public procurement. Can public procurement be used as a tool? It's an open question if any one of you would like to answer here in the panel.
Like, Pranchu, can you just define what do you mean by public procurement?
So procurement at an organization level, can we green the public procurement?
Yeah.
So for example, Mandeep, today your whole business model is a individual focused
Correct,
model.
yeah.
Individuals are
Yeah.
buying. Can it be an enterprise-based model where enterprises are deciding we as a collective group will buy 50% of our material as refurbished material? And can policies be used to drive that sort of a large change? Because at least in IT, 40 to 50% of the sales is to enterprises.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important. I think, and the government should start at least 10% of their laptop procurement or smartphone procurement necessarily coming from a refurbished supply chain. I think that is going to give a very good impact on, you know, building this industry, because then the demand side is actually taken care of. Now, of course, there are challenges to figure out what products are refurbished and who's going to give a certification to that, whether this is actually refurbished or not. But I think if governments can actually come up with some kind of plan, it's going to be very, very helpful.
Sure. I think this is all from a questions point of view. I think we can end. We are exceeded the time by a few minutes, but it was a very, very good dialogue, the first in the series. The sessions going forward will be fairly technical. We will bring into dialogue a lot of aspects on recycling, material recoverability. We will also start going into very specific things like, you know, what do we do with plastics from e-waste? Can it truly be recycled and into what? And so forth. So we request all of you to be tuned. Sreepriya, if you have any message for everyone, kindly pitch in.
I think the only message would be the report would be out for the first season. So do check it out. And yes, we will keep you posted on all the future coming episodes that would be here. And I think we'll also make a provision to send out the questions beforehand so that we are able to plan out the discussion much better. And thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you so much for agreeing and making time for this conversation. I think there were a lot of, like Pranchu mentioned, right? It was divergent yet convergent in its own way. And I would like to just end it with one quote that never underestimate what a series of committed citizens can do, because that's the only thing that has always changed the world. And thank you to all of you entrepreneurs out here, because you all have made a massive difference in what India looks today from the perspective of waste. So thank you so much to all of you. And I hope we all are able to contribute better to enabling a circular economy in India. Thank you and wish you all a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sreepriya.